What experience of yours is so crazy, you don't tell people about it because they wouldn't believe you? When I was younger I worked at a popular theme park in the UK as a ride assistant. One of the rides I worked on was the river rapids. Two young scouse lads who had obviously been drinking got on and it was clear they were going to be a pain in the ass. As their raft came towards the end, they both were running around the outsides of it. The raft hits the wall and they both fell in. This is near the lift section of the ride, which if they'd been snagged would have torn them up badly. I ran down and God knows how managed to pull them both out. They were both swiftly escorted to the medical center and I'm assuming off park. The same day, after I finished work, I went to go and see a friend for a few hours and on my way home I follow a car that is all over the place. The car hits a curb and flips onto its roof. I stop my car, run across, yank the doors open and pull both of the occupants out. Same to lads I'd pulled out of the water at work earlier in the day. I was on a train and this train had one of those chains which you pull in case of an emergency and it stops the train, and if you pull it for no reason you can face up to 2 years in prison and a huge fine. So I was just sitting and when I decided to get up to go to the washroom, I was kind of stuck, so I used the nearest thing to help me get up and what I pulled was the chain. Suddenly the train stopped and I was like, oh crap, here I go to the prison. When suddenly people started running out of the train. PS the train had no doors. You would understand if you know what an average local Indian train looks like. I don't know about other countries. And what I realized was that a compartment of the train was on fire. So that's how I survived from going to prison and accidentally saved the train. I told this story to a friend but he would not believe me, so I just let it go. TLDR, I saved train and no go prison. I like watching wild birds at my work. I watched a young magpie steal bread off a raven. The magpie's family then attacked the young magpie, took the bread off and gave it back to the raven. They were bird yelling at the young bird, then called to the young magpie and kinda forced it to the front of the pack to the raven. The adult magpies gently pecked at the young magpie until it sung at the raven. Then the magpies all waddled away and went back to hunting for bugs. I feel like I watched some sort of family magpie discipline to prevent an interspecies bird war. Edit. These are Australian birds so they are the size of footballs. Magpies are smart and a bit cunty if they don't like you. Opened the fridge and a, edit, jar of mustard came falling down. It hit the ground and I already thought, great. Now I have to clean all of it up. But I genuinely didn't hear it hitting the ground. When I looked down there was nothing there. No glass shards. Mustard. Nothing. Looked around for a good 5 minutes questioning my reality. Turns out it kinda repelled off the ground and landed in the window shelf, next to the fridge. Like 1.5 feet above the floor. Upright. Standing. It straight up did a bottle flip off the floor. It dropped a solid 6 feet on hard ground and just bounced. Still questioning the laws of physics to this date. I used to sweat blue for a few months. My clothes, nails, and phone cover all got stained blue. It went away after a while on its own, which was good because the doctors couldn't figure it out. Once when I was 8 I was climbing out of the bathtub after showering. Since I was wet and sheet, my mom wrapped me up in a towel so my hands were wrapped as well. I ended up tripping over the edge of the bathtub and face planted onto the ground, where I just laid there kinda comatose for a second. So I tried to get up. Blood flowing down my face from a cut in my head and my nose. And my bucket of crabs nearby, this was a seaside resort, toppled over and went all over me. And they were like in a blood frenzy or something because they pinched me all over, so I started rolling on the ground. Lovely experience BTW. My family kinda just stared at me. I bled from my nose for 3 hours after being rescued from the crabs. And got sent to hospital, where my nose actually wasn't broken. My family refuses to acknowledge it ever happened even though I have a hospital bracelet with that date. Oddest thing ever. My friend and I once missed the last train home after a gig and wandered around a nearby harbor, killing time until the train started up again. A drunk man, around 50 yo. 30 years older than us at the time, stumbled out of a building and invited us onto his boat. We sat with him drinking rum for a few hours while he regaled us with stories about all the 6 parties he'd hosted on this boat. I didn't believe him, but I was warm and had a drink in hand, so I humored him. He eventually pulled a lever near the front which opened a secret door to 6 dungeon, filled with all kinds of bondage gear and 6 toys. We then added each other on Facebook and my friend and I went to catch our train back to London. Edit. He would tell us about the numerous women that were half his age that would come from all over the country to attend these parties. He would also tell us that he was absolutely, unequivocally not gay, but would totally suck off the other guys in attendance because it was the polite thing to do. A pirate hero. I was like 12 years old and played with my dog in the backyard. He suddenly stopped and just looked at my leg. There was a piece of wood in my leg. It was 8 centimeters long and in 90-degree angle in my leg. It didn't hurt. I didn't feel anything. To this day I'm wondering how this stick found its way into my leg. One time after school I was emptying my bag on my bed. I had a sandwich wrapped in cling wrap from lunch that I didn't eat. I dropped the sandwich on the floor and I went to pick it up. I couldn't find it anywhere. I checked under my bed, in my bag, all over the floor and under any items. I never found that sandwich. Edit. Thanks for the silver, kind stranger. Was crossing the border at the Golden Triangle from Thailand into Myanmar. Had a heat stroke due to dehydration and passed out in the middle of the street right after the passport control. Woke up to 5 armed soldiers pointing rifles in my face. Don't speak a word of Thai or any other Asian language. I signaled I need to drink water with my hands and they gave me a Coca-Cola and helped me sit down in a nearby chair. Back in high school a few years ago I had a photography class with my best friend and we went to Nick to take pictures for an assignment. We were walking through Times Square and there's always people trying to hand out flyers or comedy club promos, bus tours, etc. This pretty girl got our attention and she was talking to us about a book. I can't remember the name. Anyway, she's explaining this book to us and suddenly she's like, I have someone who can talk to you about this book in more detail. Come with me. And she grabbed my friend and I by the arm and starts walking us somewhere down like 42 Ave if I remember correctly. It ends up being a Scientology church. At the time I had no idea about Scientology and was just curious what the heck was going on. So she walks us through the door and immediately a small group of people approaches us. She tells them we want to join and their eyes light up. One of the leaders I guess comes over and the girl basically hands off to him. He leads us down a hallway and says something along the lines of, we have a special movie for you. So we're brought into a small theater, if you could call it that. Maybe like 20 chairs and a small screen. He says the video lasts about half an hour and leaves, closing the door behind him. After 2 seconds my buddy and I finally go WTF and head for the door. Turns out it's locked. We looked around the room for any other door but it was dark except for the light from the screen. I really did think we were gonna get gassed. The video was about how each of us all have untapped superpowers and this was more or less an instructional video of how to activate them. It was so absurd. When the video ended they opened the doors and asked us to fill out a contact form. Nope. We beelined it for the door and got out immediately. Headed to Midtown Comics to catch our breaths and then went about our day. I've told people before and they've been skeptical and dismissive by saying, well, why didn't you just get out immediately, or why didn't you break free from the girl? etc. IDKTBH. In the moment I didn't feel threatened or scared. I wasn't even sure what was happening because it was so sudden and quick. It wasn't until we got in the little theater that we both opened our eyes and went to WTF is going on. So yeah. Kidnap might be a strong word but that was my one and only brush with Scientology. Once as a landlord I had to break up a 18-person orgy. We had noise complaints which were common, went to the room to check and things were odd. They would barely open the door to speak to me. They had the weirdest assembly of clothing on. And there was this weird salty smelling fog in the room. Finally, just for documentation's sake I had to have them sign my report and they said, do you want all of us to sign? I said what? They turned on the lights and in the middle of the floor was a giant pile of naked ass. We are talking every gender. Every position. A clown. A midget. A toilet seat. All in one big pile gyrating. My presence wasn't going to stop the party. I then looked up at the TV. They had a gigantic 80+ inch TV super high def playing the most explicit porn I've ever seen. I mean you could see razor burn. I had to shut down the party because the buildings were sheet and there was an occupancy limit in each room. You could only have 7 people in at a time. And they were over quota. All at once like 15 angry naked people got up and started storming out of the room in various degrees of nakedness. I had to return to my office to write a report up and were we told to be as explicit as possible, so I included the razor burn. The sloppy ham smacks sounds. Everything. I got a call in the morning from the female manager going, yeah, we don't need that much detail. You are in trouble, the owner wants to speak with you, so she put on the elderly male owner and he exclaimed that was the best story I've ever read. Please write more. When I was 9 or 10 years old, I was walking around in our flat and wondering what was itching below my foot. So I looked and I had a thumbtack sticking all the way inside my heel. I have no clue why, but it didn't hurt at all. I had a huge shock though. Also interesting to note that the hole is still there 12 years later. When I was a teenager I almost got run over by Robert Pattinson in my hometown. It's a smaller city between Bruges and Ghent. He was driving a Mercedes. Probably on his way from Brussels to the hotel he was staying in on the coast. I'm 100% sure it was him. He was in Brussels for a premiere for the latest Twilight movie at the time. Only told my dad. This happened 8 years ago. I, 10 years old, was walking my dog down the street with my father. And my dog decided to take a piss on the car wheel of a Mercedes-Benz. A couple minutes later that exact Mercedes-Benz slowly drives past us and then U-turns around and slowly drives past us again. This time he opens his window and shouts "duck you" to us multiple times without explanation. After cursing at us for like a minute straight he speeds off back into the neighborhood, so we just continue on our walk. As soon as we get back into our street we see the man walking towards us and pull out a gun. He aims it at us and shouts "your dog pee my wheel" over and over again. Of course my dad gets very angry and shouts back at him, "Do you think this is the ducking Wild West?" He then starts shooting at us but misses completely. Then my dad sprints at him and manages to tackle him to the ground. I go and get my mother and we call the police. Meanwhile my dad still has the guy pinned down. The police come and take the guy away and we then find out that he was a big Chinese drug dealer in the area. So this is basically the story of how my dad took down a Chinese gangster whilst unarmed. When I was much younger, preteen, I was outside watching shooting stars. It was that time of year where you can see lots of comets fly by. It was the middle of the night and I was laying in the grass just enjoying the stars and comets. My older stepsister had just gone inside to grab a drink. Out of nowhere the entire night sky lit up bright blue for a nanosecond. All that was left when it faded was a blue streak across the sky and what looked kinda like a ship at the front of the streak. I didn't know what I was seeing, but it looked like it was rotating slowly. It eventually disappeared. But the trail was still in the sky. Immediately I rushed inside to try and get people out to see it. By the time they got outside it had faded completely. Nobody believed me. I found out later it was just a SpaceX launch. But I thought I had seen a genuine UFO for years. I know I saw it. But I didn't tell anyone because I'd sound crazy. Edit. Here's the video that made me realize what it was I saw. youtube.com. Edit 2. There weren't comets. It was a meteor shower. Got the words mixed up. Not an astronomer lol. Edited. Edit 3. The video isn't of the launch that I saw. It's just the video I saw recently that made me finally realize what I saw due to its similarity. On my first day of school, in I think social studies, I had a certain feeling of content knowledge that I knew everyone. That kind of feeling you get when you've been there for a while. Which didn't make any sense. as it was the first day of school and I knew I didn't know any of these other kids. Then the feeling went away as I questioned it. And I shrugged it off. Until during the last week of school. In the same class. Bored and ready to go. I suddenly felt mildly panicked that I didn't know anyone. As if it was the first day again. Then I remembered how I felt on the first day. I think I experienced a time swap. Not as crazy as other comments on here. But I once cracked open 2 double-yolked eggs in a row. Okay, this is literally for me. One night I was coming back from a friend's house to my house. It was 7 PM when I left and after a 20 minutes walk I arrived home. Though there is a small problem. I arrived home at 7 AM next morning. The lighting was the same and I didn't ever notice a change in the amount of daylight. The only reason I noticed something was off is because upon arriving home my dad was leaving for work and asked me why I had returned so early. Completely confused I asked what he meant and he showed me his watch. I was taken aback and he noticed something was wrong. He asked what was wrong and I told him. He looked me dead in the eye. And started laughing. He said we had spoken at 10 PM and I had told him that I would be staying for the night at the friend's house I left at 7 PM. Friend confirmed time of departure and dad confirms time of arrival, as he was leaving for work and also I myself remember that. This leaves us with a 12-hour gap in which I have no idea what was I doing and where I was. My dad didn't believe me and thought I was pranking him. Thankfully it has been 1.5 years since that and nothing like that has happened since. Still gives me the chills trying to understand how could something like this happen. Edit, as many concerned people pointed out. I could be suffering from epileptic episodes. This is not the case. 6 months after this happened and due to an unrelated health problem, severe migraines, I had multiple encephalograms, 2 MRIs, a CT scan and countless blood exams. My doctor concluded there is no problem whatsoever with my brain, or any other part for that matter, and another doctor agreed. Edit 2. Hey guys, you can chill. I will not die nor become a psychopath. It's all good. I was playing with snow on the top of my building and then I hear a bullet pass next to me. So I proned, then I heard a gunshot from far and right after that a bullet hits the glass behind me. I released, it's a sniper. He shoot 5 bullets or 4, I don't remember exactly, but none hit me. I went down, told my mother, but she didn't believe me and didn't care that much. I live in Reddit.